What's up, guys? Joe Fileman here, back with another installment from my channel, Rollin' in Crypto. Today is April 17th of 2018, and I'm very excited to bring you guys a new ICO review today. An ICO that I am extremely excited about. This ICO has flown under the radar. I very recently saw a few people talking about it, but not even myself or anybody on my research team have heard about it before a couple of weeks ago. But today we're going to talk about DAOstack. This is one of the most exciting projects I've seen in the blockchain space to date. If you're uninformed or you don't know up until this point what a DAO is, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. And actually, let's do a little rundown on what a DAO is. So a DAO, as we just said, is our decentralized autonomous organization, and it is a form of investor-directed venture capital. So the DAO has an objective to provide a new decentralized business model for organizing both commercial and nonprofit enterprise. It was initiated on the Ethereum blockchain and had no conventional management or structure or board of directors. So this was the original DAO. If you were not in the space a few years ago, there was the first DAO which launched on the Ethereum blockchain, and there was a couple of issues with it, and eventually what happened was there was a hack in a sense, and a third of the tokens that were a part of the DAO were stolen, and that's why we had the very controversial and the huge forking of the Ethereum Classic blockchain. So now obviously it operates on a different blockchain in entirety, but the DAO has kind of faded away ever since that point in time. So how does the DAO work? The DAO was a decentralized autonomous organization that exists as a set of contracts among people that resided on the Ethereum blockchain. It did not have a physical address, nor formal people that were head in management roles. The original theory underlying the DAO was that by removing delegated power from directors and placing it directly in the hands of owners, the DAO removed the ability of directors and fund managers to misdirect and waste investor funds. So really quick, just to show you guys a little bit of an image on how this works. This is kind of how the DAO would work. So given that you would have a certain number of DAO tokens, whatever the tokens were for the set DAO, there's a number of different people that are operating, trying to create this different DAO protocol and be the one that's first to market, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. But here we can see where there is a larger hold, has more influence on the DAO, and they are closer to the middle of the circle, and therefore they decide more heavily what happens with the allocated funds and the ideas for the DAO. And the ones that are further away and have a smaller sphere of influence on the decisions obviously don't have as much of the decision making per that different idea. That isn't given for all different points. Each autonomous organization would have their own subset of ideas and have voting protocols for those subset of ideas. So DAOstack is an extremely interesting idea here. It essentially takes this idea that was extremely revolutionary a few years back and gives us a launch pad in order to do this the correct way using DAOstack. The DAO was intended to operate as a hub that disperses funds currently in Ether, the Ethereum value token, to projects. So essentially, investors receive voting rights by means of a digital share token. They vote on proposals that are submitted by contractors, and a group of volunteers called curators check and identify of the people submitting proposals and make sure those projects are legal before whitelisting them. The profits from the investments will then flow back to the stakeholders, so the people that invest in these projects would then be able to have their investments flow back as the traditional nature of a venture capital fund. So what is DAOstack? DAOstack is an operating system for this new form of governance. Up until this point, DAOs have really remained more of an abstract idea, following the initial release of subsequent Ethereum fork for the first attempt. At the base of DAOstack Arc, an open universal framework for smart contracts for decentralized governance and collective blockchain management. As HTTP allows interoperability of websites, DAOstack allows the same interoperability to organizations and web companies. In result, we will see a new web of operation and collaboration in which can be self-organized around shared goals. DAOs have attracted the top names within the blockchain space, as we'll look at a little bit later. We'll check out the team on DAOstack, and we'll talk a little bit about what's so revolutionary about it. With open resources that will help to scale indefinitely without sacrificing agility or coherence. Given this ability to scale DAOs, we'll be able to compete with corporate structures indefinitely. Unfortunately, up until this point, DAOs have lacked the operating system to be deployed correctly, and that's something DAOstack is doing. DAOstack is an operating system for these DAOs with thousands of open source creators jointly producing dApps and redistributing individual ownership of the projects to contributors of value. DAOstack will be the foundation for launching these DAOs successfully. So very interesting here. The idea of a DAO is something that I've been very interested in quite some time. Essentially, the decentralization of a form of governance is something that could really propel this space forward, where you, me, every individual peer, and then the larger organizations have the ability to all vote at once, and it's a real democracy, which is extremely interesting. Why are DAOs the future? The ability to collect and coordinate large number of individuals, as we just said, with different skill sets is a massive driver within society. It is the reason communities were born. With legacy organizations, we see a lack of ability to scale and react to rapidly changing conditions. With the larger organization is more internal friction, and smaller organizations see more pressure from competition. Very frequently with large conglomerates and small businesses, a new technology is too massive to massively reduce coordination costs, pushing scaling and efficiency for organizations up drastically. For example, one was the internet. We had email, all these different ways of communication costs just being driven down drastically. And DAOs are another form of where that governance can have that cooperation price completely obliterated in comparison to what it is at this point in time. So let's jump over to the DAOstack website a bit here. Here, let's talk about what the DAO or DAOstack offers. Blockchain governance, programmatic cooperation, holographic consensus. So let's talk a little bit about it. Decentralized governments based on Ethereum smart contracts, similar to the original DAO, but obviously with a bit of change with the launchpad from the DAOstack. Enables faultless execution of crowd decisions. So instead of you putting your money into different individuals that may misallocate those funds, this is a real democratic idea for decentralized organizations and allowing you and I to decide what we think is best, working alongside these businesses in these decisions. Programming or programmatic cooperation, crypto economic incentive design at the individual level empowers frictionless cooperation at the collective level. So this is basically saying that you, I, and everyone else, because of the lack of friction and the payout directly to what is actually decided by everybody, takes away these friction and the time that we would spend generally for these issues at different levels and protocol levels. Holographic consensus. Effective decision making is possible with the edge decisions guaranteed to be coherent with the will of the greater majority. Again, this is the real democracy. This is the decentralized ability of it, and you see the sphere of influence that we talked about. Everyone has their different amount that they will be influencing this project depending on how much of the hold and stake they have within that company. So DAOstack, just a little bit more. Here's a diagram to show you guys, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as we delve further into the project. But ARC is the very interesting part of this. ARC is a general purpose governance framework for configuring and deploying DAOs on the Ethereum blockchain, along with ArcJS, which is the friendly API layer that lets basically any developers put dApps on top of ARC. And then with Alchemy, which is the native user interface that people like you and I will be using, one of the many interoperable applications. So this is extremely interesting. It lays it out very beautifully here on the website. On top of that, the website here is done very, very well, very clean. Obviously, we like to see that with projects as well. So this diagram really helps you understand the entirety of the DAO. But let's scroll down a little bit and talk about the team itself. So the team is stacked. I think I counted 6 PhDs as a part of this team, and we're going to talk a little bit about the big heads on the team itself and what they are actually doing. But just the pure number of great minds on this team alone is super interesting. But let's jump into a little bit first here. So Matt Field, the CEO and architect here, he is actually he used to work for Backfeed. He was the co-founder and CEO for Backfeed, which is obviously another large company and has done extremely well for itself. On top of that, he's also a PhD and a Master's of Science in Theoretical and Mathematical Physics, so that's our first PhD on the team. And he's the CEO and head of this, and he has been the CEO for a successful company before. So Oren, I'm gonna butcher this name, Sokolowski. This is our lead dev here. He's going to he's worked on a number of different projects as well before. He is very connected in the space from what I've seen, and just looking at his track record with these different tech companies, I think he'll be a good fit to really fit in here as well. Adam Levy, he's a co-founder of DAOstack, and he's another PhD. He's a PhD in theoretical and mathematical physics as well, and this is looking like one of the first projects he's actually spent some serious time on. I'm gonna butcher this name again. Dora Garbish, another PhD. He's the product lead for Alchemy, which is our native user interface for ArcGIS and the entirety of the DAO stack. So he was a business director for Terran Collective as well, so he has a little bit of a tech background prior to this before, and very interesting to see another PhD here. His PhD is in social computing and social computing. And then lastly, these names are all very hard to pronounce, but Primavera de Filippi. She was a contributor into the Internet Policy Review, a researcher at CNRS, and she is also a PhD as well in copyright law. So there's actually a lot more people on this team, a couple more PhDs as well, but this team is massive, and it's extremely interesting to see so many people, so many good minds aligning on this project already. On top of that, they have some interesting advisors. The co-founder here at Neurohacker Collective, co-founder and ex-CEO of DivX, which is very interesting as well. Founder and CEO of eToro.com, and CEO and founder of, or co-founder of Gnosis. And this is these are all partners within this this project with the DAOstack and the DAO Collective in totality. So really quick, let's talk about the actual token. Gen is the token that will be running on DAOstack. Gen is the native token of the DAOstack platform. Basic operations across the DAOstack ecosystem, such as promoting proposals, will require the spending and holding of GEN. GEN will be distributed to contributors of value through the DAOstack framework itself, incentivizing deployment, promotion, and adoption. So Gen is going to be the actual token that we will be using when the DAOstack launches and to actually be a part of the DAO. I intend to buy some GEN when I get the opportunity to do so, because I do really like the idea behind DAOs, and I want to be able to be in the voting level of the protocol when the opportunity comes up. So really quick, let's talk about the DAOs, or DAOstack's competitors. First and foremost, their first competitor is Aragon. Aragon right now is sitting at a market cap of about 87 million, and they have a circulating supply of 26 million ANT. For Aragon, they basically have they were trying to do something similar with a DAO protocol, but DAOstack will actually be able to bring their beta to market first before Aragon has even been able to bring theirs over the years that they have been out. So the ArcDAOstack's general purpose governance framework, working with ArcGIS, allows devs to easily build the dApps we've already talked about, and then the native user interface for interoperable apps. So this is going to be fully functioning and brought to market before Aragon is capable of doing so. Also, another competitor here is Augur. Augur has the predictive linguistics, and also this is a huge market cap here at 320 million. But Augur has a form of predictive analysis very similar to DAOstack. This function is built into DAOstack to help make a more predictable nature for the DAO. In a sense, ideas carry more weight from authoritative personnel will find its way to the forefront. So one of the things about the DAO is when there's things that really need to be decided and actually should take priority over other things on top of the DAO and other subjects, they will be pushed to the forefront for people to be able to vote on them and make sure that they are sitting in a priority position so that people understand that this is something that needs to be decided. So DAOstack, right now they're sitting at a 30 million valuation for their tokens. I believe the pre-sale starts in 13 days is what I saw on the top of the website. Let's check really quick. Yes, 13 days. So they're looking for a valuation of 30 million. I very rarely would say that a valuation of 30 million before you even come to market is a fair valuation, but this is one of the few times I think that it is. DAOstack's roadmap is almost entirely built out, so they've already completed the majority of their check marks. Then the follow-up question would be, why do they need this $30 million if they've already brought so many things to market? My answer to that would be R&D, and as well as bringing new advisors on board. I saw rumblings of another 2 advisors and VIP advisors in that sense being brought on to DAOstack. To not talk about it too much before anything happens, keep an eye out for that, but they're going to be using this money to incentivize new VIP advisors, which obviously would be huge because you make those connections with different tech companies, and being able to bring a DAO into the point where it could be adopted would be absolutely huge for crypto in general. They already have the prototype released as well. The beta will be live in 30 days after ICO, and mainnet launches in 90 days following. So very quickly they're going to be able to bring this actual test to market, and you guys will be able to see the actual working product behind DAOstack. Over the next months, they plan to go through stages of alpha and beta testing, bringing on certain individuals for uses on the UI and DApp integration. And then DAOstack is going to value, obviously this valuation is high, but I think it's fair for DAOstack, no doubt about it. As always, guys, this is going to be something that I'm going to be investing in, and I'm bringing a quick review to you guys so you can learn more about it. I think DAOstack has a huge upside potential, and just the DAO framework and idea behind it is enough for me to invest, period, in the idea behind this ICO. I will be buying up the tokens when I get the opportunity to do so, but as far as at this point in time, I won't be able to participate in the ICO, being from Northern America, obviously. So obviously keep an eye out for this one. When the pre-sale ends here in 13 days, then keep an eye out for it to go on exchanges and everything in that nature. But as always, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. If you'd like to see more more reviews as far as ICOs, or any ICO that I haven't reviewed before, put it in the comment section below, and I'll talk about it more heavily. I will be doing a live stream a little bit later today where I will do some technical analysis, and we can talk about DAOstack on there as well. If you have any questions in regards to DAOstack, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to answer them. Thank you, guys.